The Face Off Sports Network presents the Fantasy Football Face Off. Get ready for fantasy, DFS, and betting talk to get you in the game. If you want to win, you have to tune in. With your host, Anthony Servino. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Face-Off.
All right. Welcome back, folks, to the FF Face-Off podcast, part of the Face-Off Sports Network. We've gone through some technical difficulties. We've gone through some other conversations about socks and dogs and their habits, but we are finally live here, and we are ready to discuss the latest news. Some contract extensions, some no contracts, so some no shows at now mandatory mini camp. We'll go through all those. We're going to do a little player versus player exercise as far as fantasy football. And most importantly, as always, if you guys have any questions, fire them into the live chat. We will answer them pretty much no matter what within reason. My name is Michael Hopp. You can follow me on X at the FF Realist. I'm joined by the wonderful, better late than never, handsome as ever, Anthony Servino. He can be followed the real NFL guru. Anthony, how's about you, sweetheart? How you
doing? Fantastic today. Happy to be here. A lot to talk about.
Lot to talk about, indeed. All right. Also joining us, we do have Pete Nova. Again, I always say there's two R's in Supernova at Supernova38. That's how super he is. And he is super because he did say he would be back in time for the show to start, and he was. So, Pete, how's it going?
It's good. I was back just in time to get one of these bad boys, so I could join you guys with a little beverage.
All right. Cheers to that. And then also joining us, I don't know if he has a beverage or not. He did say maybe he would have a beverage. We shall see. Yeah. His name is Steve D'Angelo. He can be followed at Fantasy Savvy. Steve, how's it going, man?
I got the old Pizza Hut cup.
Of course you do. See?
Yeah. I'm drinking kombucha, though. It's not soda. It's kombucha. I'm on the kombucha kick. If you guys ain't into it,
you've been on a kombucha kick for like a year now.
Yeah, I like the kombuchas. They're doing a better job making them. They taste better, so I like them. But, yeah, happy to be here. And, just trying to man, there's so much work to do to get ready for this fantasy football season. So it's good that we're here, grinding it out, giving the info to the people, bouncing it off four heads, getting different opinions, ideas. And we're going to do this all the way throughout the season to get, some winnings in our freaking pocket and your pocket as well.
Amen. 1,000%. It's getting to be the most wonderful time of the year. So there you go. With that, I guess we will get into some of the news. This one is, before we get to the big players, this one did pop on my radar early on when I was preparing for the show. The Chiefs did wind up agreeing to terms with their rookie Xavier Worthy. I was just going to go around the room really quick. We don't have to spend too long on this. But if there's a Chiefs wide receiver that you want, which wide receiver is it? Anthony, I'll go to you, then Pete, and then Steve.
Rashee Rice, obviously, but there's so many question marks around Rashee Rice right now. When is he going to be suspended? Is he going to be suspended? Yes. How long is it going to be for? And we're seeing his ADP plummet because of it. I get what the reports are saying, but there's still, scale back to Alvin Kamara, how long that took. There's no guarantee Rashee Rice serves a suspension this year. So I'm actually trying to take advantage of the ADP dip. If it blows up in my face, it blows up in my face. We will see him at some point. But outside of Rice, I am leaning more Hollywood Brown. We already know what he can do in the NFL, and now he has the best quarterback he's ever played with.
Yep. Pete, what says you on that front? Chiefs wide receiver, which one are you going with if you had to pick one?
Yeah, I was hoping that I'd be arguing with Anthony today. Maybe we get to that a little bit later, but I also agree. I'm willing to take Rice on his ADP dip right now. Prior to the suspension talk, he was one of my favorite guys that I was looking at and targeting for this year. So, yeah, I'd rather Rice over Worthy. Worthy feels like he's going to be a better best ball play, in my opinion.
And Steve?
Yeah, Worthy, man, is super talented, super fast. He kind of reminds me of Tank Dell a little bit, but we saw how Rashee Rice came into as a rookie last year. It took him like, I don't know, what, 8, 9, 10 weeks to finally get fully acclimated into the offense. So it's very complex, a lot of stuff to learn. I think we might see, similar with Worthy. He's already got a hamstring pull early in training camp. That's never good, even though it's only May. OTAs, but whatever. It's still way early. I mean, he could recover, but it's always a little bit dangerous, especially with rookies. They're still learning how to adapt their body to the NFL regimen. So, yeah, I would say Rashee Rice, especially if he's not going to be suspended, that's the guy I want. I mean, he was just so consistent down the stretch and was a winner on your, producing fantasy championships for your teams.
Yeah, not that I'm against Rashee Rice, but just quickly to round it out, I think I would go with Marquise Brown. I mean, not the year that we all anticipated last year with the Cardinals. Maybe we did because there wasn't going to be Kyler for a long time, but 14 games played, 574 yards, which was the lowest of his career, even his rookie year. But again, like Anthony said, he's playing with the best quarterback in football now. So if there's any way to turn that around, it's probably that. So that's where I would probably go. With that out of the way, we'll get to a much bigger receiver, that being Justin Jefferson. He signs a 4-year, $140 million extension, $110 million guaranteed, averaging $35 million a season, highest paid non-QB. I mean, there's not really a point to go around the room on this one because we all know what Justin Jefferson is. We know he's going to be, one of the top receivers in the NFL, top wide receiver you draft. But I did want to kind of lean this into, Anthony, to your team, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is sitting out for mandatory camp. 3 days of no showing could tally up to over $101,000. I don't think that matters much to a guy like CeeDee Lamb. Wide receiver 1 last year, career high in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. So, Anthony, I was going to kind of give this to you first. Eventually, I will mix that up, but I'll go to you first in terms of if you have a reaction to Justin Jefferson, you can go ahead. But, I mean, CeeDee Lamb holding out for now. Do you think he signs a contract before the year, or do you think he eventually just shows up and plays? How does this play out in Big D?
I think CeeDee Lamb will be on the field because he is going to accrue fines if he does not show up. Obviously, you sit out, they accrue fines. That's probably going to be built into your contract. They'll wipe that out. They'll figure that out. When it's all said and done, CD's not going to get paid unless he shows up. Like, you need to be on the field. You need to play. Yeah, is there a chance he holds out? Yes, but it's like the same thing with Dak. They both need to get paid. What better way to maximize your value? Like right now, I don't know if I give CeeDee Lamb Justin Jefferson money. But if CeeDee Lamb goes out this year and gives us another season of what he did last year, he can command whatever the hell he wants. Same thing with Dak Prescott. If Dak follows up last season with another showing, I get they get bounced in the playoffs, but he's still one of the top quarterbacks in the league. They've won how many 12 games and how many consecutive seasons? Dak's going to get whatever the hell he wants. So it's in these guys' best interest to show up, especially, again, you're under contract anyway. It's not like it's T. Higgins situation where you're kind of in purgatory.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Steve, what, as far as the CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson, if you have any kind of comments and all that?
I mean, it's just typical wide receiver bullshit that we see every single year. And, these guys are so immensely talented and so important to their teams, and they want to be out there playing. So, I mean, at some point, we're going to see both these guys out there. I think they'll both be out there week 1. I'm not really worried about it at all at this point.
Yeah. Pete, do you think we run into a scenario where, I mean, we've heard some of Dak, he's going to want a contract. He's going to want to get paid. They're going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb. They're going to have to pay Micah Parsons. Do you think something has to give in Dallas, as far as financially?
Yeah. I mean, we just saw what the 49ers did, right? And I'm sure you're dying to talk about that at some point. But
yeah, we'll get to it.
I think at the end of the day, these teams, the stars and the studs, they don't go away. CeeDee Lamb, he's going to get paid. They're going to figure out a way to get him paid. When that'll be, I'm not exactly sure, but I wouldn't be too worried. Him and Parsons are both going to get paid. I do think Dak is odd man out here, but they could also find a way to bring him back next season. But Micah and CeeDee, I feel pretty comfortable saying and expecting them to stay with the Cowboys going forward after the season.
There is, I believe, a no trade and a no tag clause. So, and I think he can't be tagged either. That might be in it, but
he's been tagged the last 2 years, so he's not eligible anymore.
Who has been tagged?
Dak, I think.
No, but I think there might be a clause in his contract saying they can't tag him.
He can't.
So, like, if I read what I read correctly, they don't get him done. He's hitting the open market. But it's always in I'll always believe it's in Dak's best interest to stay in Dallas because of life after football. Look at all these quarterbacks and former Dallas players. They're leading network, teams. So it's just smart for Dak to stay there.
I mean, for Aikman, stay in Dallas, Dallas career. Yeah. I mean, there's something to being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. So, especially if you could do it for your entire career, absolutely, it means something.
Look at Romo.
It just doesn't end with a Super Bowl ring.
And it started with Don Meredith.
And it started with Don
on
Meredith.
Monday Night Football.
And then, just as Pete slipped in there, it's not a Super Bowl ring because Pete's been looking to shiv you all day. So there you go. But I will say, as Pete mentioned. Pete was kind of alluding to with what the 49ers are doing, which we'll get to in a second, and which I think the Cowboys can do. It's all about what you're paying that player that specific year, and you do that tightrope, you do that balancing act of the cap for that particular year. So if you could balance those sort of things out, then I think the Cowboys can keep all three. If there is one odd man out, I would probably say Dak, but still, I don't know. I'm optimistic that they'll keep all three in house. So. We will talk a little more Cowboys a little bit later on, but also, yes, Christian McCaffrey does sign his extension. He was already on the books for another 2 years. They gave him another 2 years on top of that. It's going to be worth $38 million over those 2 years. The big thing again, which was kind of what we were just discussing, is the 49ers managed to, with this contract, they lowered his cap hit in 2024 from 14.1 to 6.7. Again, this is a quick conversation because we all know Christian McCaffrey is good, yada, yada, yada. He's the best running back in fantasy. Some other guys may creep into number one, but for now it's Christian. He's managed to stay healthy with San Francisco. I think the big thing that everybody's looking to here, which I'll just roll into this, is Brandon Aiyuk, much like CeeDee Lamb, no-showed, looking at the same sort of fines. Aiyuk is scheduled for a $14.1 million salary in 2024, the final year of his rookie deal, back-to-back seasons of 1,000 yards. Again, I've talked about this way too much. I've given my opinion so much. Steve, I'll go to you first. Do you think that there's anything that could come out of this situation with Brandon Aiyuk not showing up to camp, where Brandon Aiyuk is not on this 49ers team starting next year? Well, this year upcoming, I should say.
This year, I find that hard to see. I think he's such a vital part to their offense. Pearsall is just a rookie. I like Juwan Jennings, but, is he going to be able to fill the role of Aiyuk? Possibly. I mean, they have a ton of other weapons, but the Niners want to do that. They want to disrupt that. They're going for the Super Bowl. They've been so damn close. Shanahan wants to win it. They're pretty comfortable in cap space. So I think they find a way to get Aiyuk there. I think most likely, if you're going to move off a receiver, it's probably going to be Deebo just because of his style of play. So I think maybe next year Deebo is going to be the more likely receiver gone. But yeah, I mean, right now, again, they're positioning, they're maneuvering, they're negotiating. They want to just get the best deal for them. They want to be secure before the season starts. And I think at some point, Aiyuk and the Niners will find some agreement. They'll get it done, and we'll see Brandon Aiyuk out there week one.
Yeah, and I mean, as I kick it to Anthony, I will say, as I always say, the Niners have a history of, with the exception of obviously Christian McCaffrey yesterday, these players, the Niners tend to wait till late July, early August to extend these players. So that's where I've always said this is going to go. But Anthony, what says you? I know Steeler fans are hot and bothered every single time a Brandon Aiyuk rumor comes up. You are also very quick to let me know when a rumor pops up as well. So,
Actually, Pete's
what are your
been
thoughts
doing
here?
that job for me lately.
Pete's been doing a little bit of that too. That little prick.
Anthony's been a little busy, man. So
that's true.
just trying to fill that void.
Well, I'm sure Anthony appreciates that. I do not. But Anthony, what says you with Aiyuk here not showing up to camp?
It's expected. Look at these other receivers this year who have threatened to hold out down to Darius Slayton. If you remember that a few weeks back, having an issue with his contract, and T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, now Brandon Aiyuk,
Greg Dortch.
You have
more money.
Does he really?
Yeah.
No fucking thing.
Then there's the rumors about a Deebo and which one's going to be traded and when is it going to happen. Same thing how I feel about Dallas right now. Like, sure, is there a chance that Aiyuk or Deebo, they get traded by the deadline because the 49ers get a deal that they can't turn down? Yes. And this is how I feel about T. Higgins too. They're going to play it. They're all going to play this year. They're going to play out their contract, and a move's going to happen in the offseason. So whether it's Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel, one of these guys will be on the move. I think the more likely scenario is next offseason. I just don't see it happening now. What is the benefit of the 49ers moving off of either Deebo or Brandon Aiyuk now? The draft's already happened. They have no benefit of doing so outside of devaluing their team in a Super Bowl window that's probably another year old.
That's like a backhanded compliment a little bit there. That was kind of edgy.
I think the window of San Francisco's 2 years, and I think that window slams shut whenever CMC hits that wall.
I mean, even speaking as a Niner fan, I mean, that window can't stay open forever. It can't. I mean,
Yeah.
They've
I'm just messing.
Been to 2 Super Bowls with this current regime, and they've come up empty. I mean, you can only do this for so long.
Not for nothing. At what point does this Kyle Shanahan window, does that ever close if he doesn't eventually win a Super Bowl?
I don't know. Pete, what says you on all this, and including Brandon Aiyuk?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same. It's kind of the similar conversation with the Bengals that we talk about, though. If I had to pick a team, the 49ers, if there was one team out of the Bengals and the 49ers, the Bengals are more likely to miss the playoffs. I don't think either do, but we talked about Higgins, right? And why would they trade him prior to the deadline? And same with the 49ers, like why would they trade a guy like Aiyuk or Deebo, who, if they're trying to push for a Super Bowl, they're going to be pretty important to winning a Super Bowl. So I get those arguments. I think the writing's on the wall probably for Deebo, but I also get the vibe that they're going to find a way to keep both of them. And honestly, it's just dragging out. I know they're bringing in Pearsall, and they invested heavily into the wide receiver position, but it really would not surprise me if somehow they figure out a way to keep them both.
They also got that kid Cohen who looks pretty damn
Cowan,
good.
Cowan,
He looks nice. I like that kid. So I mean, I think, how much can they afford? I mean, I don't know. Right. I feel like they could definitely move off Deebo next year. This year, I just don't see it. These receivers, they're so talented. They have so much leverage, and they put these GMs and these teams in a tough spot. I wouldn't want to be dealing with this shit. It's got to be tough.
The other thing to keep in mind here is, the Niners have this cap space now. They now have, I believe, $32 million in cap space, which can roll over to the next year. And they're trying to they got McCaffrey done. They're trying to get Aiyuk done because they're going to have to get Purdy done. That's going to happen. And that's why I fully believe that this is Deebo's last year with the team. I would love to keep everyone together forever. Be a nice kumbaya story, and we're all friends. We're having a good time, but it's just not realistic. At some point with the Niners, something has to give with this.
And don't you think, Mike, by the way they approach this draft, getting Pearsall end of the first round, and Cowing, who is a pretty nice player. I mean, it kind of seems like they're preparing to do something.
Yeah, I've said that before. That was a proactive move by the 49ers to take Pearsall because I fully expect this to be Deebo's last year. They're not giving him another contract.
I don't listen.
I don't know.
I get what the whole thing with Deebo, and I feel like Deebo is the Zeke of this football team. What I mean by that, a big part of what was missing in Dallas last year, like Dak was the leader, Zeke was like he was the heartbeat, he was the soul, he was the emotional leader. Deebo Samuel's the guy with the boombox with Trent Samuel, with Trent Williams leading that. Like Deebo's is a fucking heartbeat of this team. So like I that's why I feel like this window is so tight right now, because when CMC falls out and Deebo leaves, it's gonna look like a different football team. Like Deebo, like he's that type of player. He does it all. Like he's one of my favorite players in the NFL because he's a football player. He'll go and bang you out.
So maybe it's Ayuk. Maybe it's Ayuk's the guy that's going to leave. Maybe they're going to keep Deebo there.
But I mean, yes, someone is going to have to emerge, and it is to that point where Anthony said it very well. Is it gets to that point where Deebo's impact off the field is just as much as on the field because he is a leader. Him and Trent out there every time with the boombox every time.
Will Brock Purdy take a team-friendly deal? Where's he from? Iowa? He doesn't need a lot of money. He lives on a farm.
Oh, Jesus. Well, here's the thing. I mean, he's from Iowa, but don't you think he wants to maybe get a nice place in San Francisco? And I hear the cost of living is pretty expensive.
He's actually from Arizona, but
maybe he wants 3 houses
at Iowa State.
Okay. I mean, he wants a house in Iowa, Arizona, and San Francisco. If he gets paid, he can do both. The last thing I want to say, and then there's 2 questions here that I want to grab to, and then we can move on. It's probably more beneficial if the 49ers extend Purdy this offseason. I mean, I know that wouldn't really sit well with Aiyuk, but with more quarterback deals coming down the pipe, that price tag is just going to continue to go up. I mean, you have Tua and Dak possibly coming down the pipe, right? Those are expected to be around at least $50 million. So it might make sense to do sooner rather than later. And they could carry over the $32 million that they have in cap space now. They're projected negative $37 million next year. Cap went up $20 million this year. We probably expected to go 10, 15 next year, assuming. And then in 2026, they have $47 million in cap space in 2026. So they could sign some of these deals and push it to 2026 as well. And with that $32 million that they have now and roll it over to next year, there's ways that they could move stuff around, I think. And they could even backload Purdy's contract. They could backload Purdy's contract too.
Sure.
I mean,
so it's all, it's all going to be about what Purdy is willing to do. And while I agree with you, that would be, that is a route they could take. I don't think the Niners take that route. I think the next contract they sign this offseason will be for Aiyuk. We'll see. But that's enough 49er talk. I'm actually done with talking 49ers, believe it or not. We could do more if you fucking want. I saw you put in the fucking chat talk about Kittle, and we could talk about that, Anthony. No. I'm kidding. Let's go ahead. Pete, what do you got here as far as
this is a new name in here, Albert. I know Albert has been in here for about 20 minutes. Hopefully you're still here, Albert. Thanks for rocking with us.
Al?
I don't know if Albert's new to the face-off. Is it? Yeah, no, this is Albert. We know Albert. Albert's
maybe new since I've been here. I don't know if I've seen
Albert's been around. I feel like Albert just comes around during the football seasons and ditches us in the off season, but it's okay.
Well, welcome back.
Happy
Albert.
He's rocking with us now. The last thing, there's 2 questions here. One's about the topic we talked about. One's slightly diverted from the topic, but Darren said, is the window closing still at the 49ers lockdown, Purdy? I think we kind of already answered that a little bit.
I mean, it all depends on what they do around Purdy. It's, like the defense needs to stay, there's a lot more variables than just Purdy with keeping that window open.
It's, and the 49ers have been lucky. They have
been very lucky.
Turning over offensive and defensive coordinators, that sets back a lot of teams.
And the Trey Lance trade alone,
that run out.
Yeah. Well, they keep getting compensation picks. And that's how they replenish a lot of their players. They do. They continue.
There is also that one thing that concerns me, which happens with so many coaches when they're there for a long time. Does the message get stale at some point?
Yeah.
Yes, I know things are going good. They're going to Super Bowls. They're going to NFC championships. But at some point, that could happen. That's a variable. So,
let me ask too, Lo. Can Brock Purdy not get better too? I mean, he's still pretty young, I mean, maybe granted he was a late round pick, probably because the ceiling wasn't high to begin with, so it's kind of hard to expect him.
He stays in his system. He's only going to get more, more and more. Adapted to it, so he should only get better.
Right. I mean, so then at that point, elite quarterbacks, we say, I never say the window's closed. Can Brock Purdy become an elite quarterback, or is he going to be a product of the system the whole rest of his career? I don't know. But if you're going to give him that big money, then you got to hope that he is an elite quarterback, because otherwise you're paying a middle tier quarterback high tier money. And look what happened. Look what happened to Daniel Jones.
Yeah, it happens.
Worked out with Baker Mayfield.
But I would.
Keep Daniel Jones' name out.
I'm not saying he's going to be Daniel Jones, but I'm just using it as an example.
No.
Sometimes you get worried about quarterback purgatory.
You literally just slammed the offended button. No. I'm cutting you off. I don't cut off many people while they talk on this show, but I'm cutting you off.
I'm even offended by that, and I hate the 49ers.
That's some fucking bullshit. Jeez. Jesus. Daniel Jones.
You got to cut Mike off. I think he drank that whole fucking
I'm about to.
Yes, it was Le'Veon Bell, I believe.
Or was it Melvin?
No. Melvin, I think, Melvin didn't hold out an entire season. What he did was he didn't take a contract, and he played the market and lost big time. That's what Melvin Gordon did. Le'Veon held out and also lost big time because when he got the contract with the Jets, he was a shell of himself.
God, he was so fucking good when he was with the Steelers. So good.
Oddly enough, the Jets always had good luck signing other people like Curtis Martin and Matt Forte. They always did good bringing in running backs, and Le'Veon didn't work out.
Here's Greg with a question. Speaking of QBs, which QBs do you think will no longer be starters in 2025? So obviously we're taking that with, they're starting this year. It's actually a good question. Does anybody have one quick off the bat, off the top of their head? I have one who was just mentioned who offended the shit out of me. Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones will not be a starting quarterback in 2025. There you go.
I could see Derek Carr. I mean, if Spencer Rattler gets in due to an injury, Anthony's rolling his eyes. I mean, I think that they would love nothing more than to have Spencer Rattler. It wouldn't be that crazy.
But Derek Carr is the type who would get a contract somewhere else.
Well, he got extended, so he's there.
Is it if you want to throw a name out there, and I don't know if it's Will Levis, if he, all this stuff, and I'm high on Tennessee. I think they're one of the best values in fantasy football, but they put a lot around Will Levis. This is saying, we're going to give you literally everything you need to succeed. If you don't get it done this year, we're going to bring in competition.
Well, he got Mason Rudolph. I mean, Mason Rudolph was pretty capable last year. He could take over at some point this season.
Rudolph.
I don't know if they'd roll with Mason.
Mason Rudolph has showed more than Will Levis ever has. I don't know, so I don't see why Mason Rudolph can't take over by week 6, week 7. I don't even like Mason Rudolph. I used to compare him to the fucking Matt Damon from School Ties. If you guys ever seen that movie.
But I was gonna say, Steve, you were about to say a quarterback just before Anthony was talking.
Yeah, some lower end ones. You could say Darnold.
Well, you said Russell Wilson, who kind of.
Yeah, I was gonna say Aiden McConnell, obviously Minshew, but yeah, Russell Wilson would be a big one. Obviously, if Fields comes in and takes his job and just starts to smash, and then another one maybe would be another bigger one. Maybe would be what the hell is I looking at?
When you go.
Yeah, Russ is a good one. Maybe Deshaun Watson too. Actually,
that's where I was going. That's where I was going to say. Deshaun is the wild card here. I get all the money. If he gets hurt again, they have Jameis Winston as a backup. Like, I don't know.
The question is if they will be starters, not if they won't be starters for their own team. There is no shot in hell, even if Deshaun has a bad year this year. I just can't see, even if they got rid of him, there's no way.
I don't know.
Teams are too prideful. I mean, unless they pull the Broncos, you just ate his fucking salary. But look, Russ was able to get a job right after.
Yeah, you got to look at the trajectory of his career. I mean, it's just, you're going to bring him to a new fan base. He's going to come off, just being a disaster in Cleveland. But yeah, I mean, you're probably right. Even if he moves off Cleveland, he'll probably end up on some bum ass team.
Some team will take a shot
starting, as a starter. But I could see it though. I mean, he could end up as a backup or Russ. Those are probably the two biggest names that I could see.
Yeah. Greg, I will not get off my take. I believe at some point Ryan Tannehill will sign with the Raiders. I just keep changing teams because in my
The Al
logical
Bundy picture, I love it.
in my logical brain, how the hell are the Raiders going to? They assembled a really nice team. They brought in, Gallup. They brought in a supporting cast at wide receivers. They have Devontae. You're telling me they're going to go field a team with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell? I don't believe it. I think, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think one of these veterans is going to eventually end up at the Raiders. Whether it's Tannehill or Garoppolo, I think probably Tannehill. I don't know. Somebody's
they
going to
already
kick the
tried
tires on him.
Garoppolo once. I don't think they're doing that again.
I can't comprehend a world where the whole NFL missed on Gardner Minshew. He had a couple of nice games with Stan Steichen, who every fucking quarterback who ever worked with Stan Steichen had success. And then all of a sudden, Gardner Minshew is going to be a thing with the no. What?
The comment from Greg said at one point last year, I thought Anthony must be Tannehill's agent.
I thought he was going, but am I wrong? Was I wrong to say Ryan Tannehill should have went to the Falcons with Arthur Smith? Maybe Arthur Smith still has a head coaching job.
Maybe. Probably not because he would.
I mean, Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, what a fucking genius move that made. That's why he's in Pittsburgh.
I have found a way to make two different segues. I will just say, though, we did talk about Deshaun Watson earlier, just for news sake. Andrew Berry, and Kevin Stefanski did get their extensions, which beyond that contract for Deshaun Watson, which was absurd in my opinion, I do think that Berry did a good enough job as general manager to warrant that extension. I mean, the Browns have one of the better rosters in football, so kudos to both of them. And then also we talked about, you mentioned Anthony, Arthur Smith, Falcons, all that fun stuff. I thought this was interesting. Bijan Robinson was speaking to the media, as players do in mandatory minicamp, and he said that he believes that the team is going to use him like a Christian McCaffrey. So that opens up everybody's eyes. Anthony, you're shaking your head already, so I'll go to you first. Unless you're shaking your head about something at work, too bad. I'm pivoting to you anyway. When you hear that about Bijan Robinson,
no, can I intervene? Can I vent here for a second? The way schools operate, I get a text from my school district where my kid goes, and it's like nonchalantly, "Oh, we just want to tell you that one of the buses on the way home, there was a car accident, and a car flipped into it." Just like the most nonchalant email, no big deal. If you have any, can you make it a little bit more urgent when this happens? No, my son's here. My kid's here.
Your son's home, right?
But another kid. But it's like they just make it sound like no big deal, nothing to see here.
I had that actually. Now that you mention that, my daughter was doing Regents, exams, so she was missing certain classes. So I got a text yesterday. It was like, your kid was not at 1, 2, 4, 6 periods. I was like, what the fuck? Like, where's my kid during the day? What are they doing? And that's it. Just blanket statement. Yeah. Your kid wasn't in class these periods. We'll talk to you later. Yeah.
Well, it's better back in the day that fucking they didn't even tell you really, did they?
That's true. Yeah. Well, actually, that was a blessing for me because I never fucking went to class.
Exactly. It was easier. So
yeah, damn straight. But okay, Anthony. So your venting is done. Okay. Yeah. Who do you has a better year between Pitts and LaPorta? So Darren is saying, who do you think has a better year between Pitts and LaPorta? We'll get back to Bijan because we can talk about Pitts because there's the Falcons. We can do that. I'm going to go LaPorta though. Just quick answer. Do I think he has the same year he had last year? No. Do I think in some circles he's a tight end 1? Do I think he needs to be that? No. But I do think LaPorta will be better than Pitts. You're paying less for Pitts in Tennessee, so there's that dynamic to keep in mind. While Anthony cools off about the school bus incident there, let's go to Pete first. We'll go to Pete, then we'll go to Steve, then we'll go to Anthony. Mm-hmm. Which one of these tight ends you taking?
Yeah, I would go with Pitts. I've really never been a huge Kyle Pitts guy, but with Cousins going there, an upgrade at the offensive coordinator spot, LaPorta, I feel touchdown regression is inevitable over there. Granted, they didn't add too much in the passing game. I still don't know if he can repeat 10 touchdowns. Kyle Pitts has been productive from a yardage standpoint and receptions and without the touchdowns. And I think the touchdowns will come. On top of it as well, I think Kirk Cousins, I read a statistic that he targeted the tight end position the fifth most in fantasy, the fifth most in the NFL last year. So Cousins has never had an issue, getting the tight end the football. I think Jordan Reed, when he was in Washington, they had a good connection there. Hawkinson, when he got there, they had a good connection. We were talking about Irv Smith for some reason, and people still want to talk about Irv Smith. Not to say that Irv Smith was any good ever, but Kirk Cousins likes tight ends. That's why we talked about Irv Smith. So I think Kyle Pitts is a smash play, and I love the discount. I think he's only going to rise as people see that Kirk's healthy and more attention gets brought to him this offseason.
Anthony, you're so cooling down, so I will go to Steve on this one, and then we'll go back to him.
LaPorta, it's a match made in heaven there in Detroit with Goff. And, in some of the biggest spots, remember watching some key games when the Lions were coming from behind and LaPorta was just his go-to guy in many cases. Maybe the touchdowns go down, but he could go over 1,000 yards this year. The problem is he's going in the second round. So, you're paying a pretty penny for him to get him, which is kind of tough where you get Pitts in like the seventh. Pitts, okay, is he this generational tight end? Probably not. Is he as good as everybody said he is? Probably not, but he's still athletic. He's still fast. Obviously, the Falcons are going to throw the ball a lot more. You got Cousins in the mix. Pete just showed all the examples. Jordan Reed was a great one. Jordan Reed was a very, very athletic tight end as well, like Pitts, good route runner. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from Pitts, but yeah, you'd have to think, third year. I remember Vernon Davis way back when. It took him like another freakish athletic tight end. Took him like 3-4 years to really get acclimated into the NFL. And that's the normal trajectory for these tight ends. Not all these guys come on the scene right away like we saw from LaPorta and Kincaid last year. So, yeah, 5 rounds later, I don't mind waiting and taking Pitts. I don't know if I'm going to heavily target Pitts this year. But, I don't mind the discount compared to LaPorta. But at least if you're going to go up and pay for LaPorta, I think you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a really good season out of him.
And Anthony, what says you on all this? Kyle Pitts, Sam LaPorta.
LaPorta to me is overvalued. I still have Kelsey as my tight end 1. I have Mark Andrews right now as my tight end 2. LaPorta last year, tight end 1 in PPR, but tight end 3 in fantasy points per game. If you look at some of the efficiency metrics, nothing jumps off the page to me. 18th yards per target, 20th yards per reception, 6th in yards per route run, which is fine. But the metrics aren't great for somebody you're paying second or third round ADP for. He was also only 5th in targets. So those touchdowns meant a lot. And I don't mind chasing touchdowns, drafting Zeke in round 10 or 9. I'm not chasing touchdowns when I'm drafting a player in the second round. I need more than that. So I would rather, if you people are high into LaPorta, go take him. I will gladly, if I want a tight end out early, I'm taking Travis Kelce in a third. When it comes to Kyle Pitts, I was never a Kyle Pitts guy. I got the people buy into the hype. They plant their flag. Never loved the situation. Same thing with Drake London. Never loved the situation. Situation changed. You bring in Zach Robinson from the McVay coaching tree. You bring in Kirk Cousins. We already know he can do and what he can support when it comes to fantasy assets. And you go to Kyle Pitts. Well, the past 2 years were not great. He's never had more than 3 touchdowns in a season. If you go back to that rookie year, there were signs of greatness. Over 1,000 yards on 110 targets, only 68 receptions, 15.1 yards per catch, only 1 touchdown. So we know, Kyle Pitts had 1,000-yard season in him in year 1. I don't even know who his quarterback was. Sam LaPorta didn't reach 900 last year. Okay,
yeah, Mariota. Yeah.
So, is there a case to be made where Kyle Pitts, I can get maybe 4 rounds, 5 rounds cheaper in some cases than Sam LaPorta? I believe there's a case to be made. Kyle Pitts outproduces Sam LaPorta in fantasy. Is it a hot take? Maybe. but I will die with that ship. I will sink with that ship.
I mean, optimism again, which we'll get to because we're going to do our player versus player debates chats here soon. So I mean, there is something to what's going on in Atlanta to have optimism that could help the stock of people in fantasy football. But I was gonna go back to the whole Bijan Robinson thing, suggesting that he could be used like Christian McCaffrey in this Falcons offense. I mean, people are high on Bijan Robinson anyway. I'm going to go to Pete first in this one, only because I'm actually curious for Pete's thoughts, because I believe he did make that trade just before this headline came out. So I wanted to get his take on that first. Then we'll go Anthony, then we'll go Steve. And I'll phrase it this way. Do you think that there is a world in which Bijan Robinson finishes as the RB1 this year?
Yes. So I do. For context, I traded Bijan in a trade in Dynasty. Yes, I received Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, and Justin Herbert, and a first in 2027, and I gave up JJ McCarthy, Bijan, and Calvin Ridley plus a second next year. So I feel pretty good about the trade. When I did see the notification and I did watch the video, a lot of it's coach speak, right? But I also feel pretty comfortable that they're going to use him. He's not CMC. I think he still has some time to get there, but I think he has the athletic ability to be that. I think the ability to be a running back one, there's only a few guys in the NFL this season. I think it's Christian McCaffrey. I think it's Breece Hall. I think it's Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley. Those are the only 5 guys I have on my list. Yeah. So I absolutely think that Bijan can and won't finish out the top 5. He won't finish outside the top 5, to be honest. So I know not a lot of analysis there and probably more feelings, but that's just how I feel.
I mean, when you're talking about a player that high, I mean, Yeah. Anthony, what says you? Bijan Robinson, do these comments get you hot and bothered, or is it just whatever?
I was already high on Bijan and believe the RB1 overall PPR is in his range of outcomes. It's in his skill set. And this goes back to what I was saying about all the changes in Atlanta. They have a top 5 offensive line. He was misused last year and still finished as an RB9.
Barely using the red zone.
Yeah, conceding touches to like Cordarrelle Patterson and Tyler Algier. Now, we go back to this coaching tree and Sean McVay. And Zach Robinson, like these guys, this coaching tree, they don't want to use multiple backs, going back to Todd Gurley. And now we see, like, when they find a special back, like a Kyron Williams, they dominate and they produce in this offense. And I think the unlocking of Bijan Robinson's coming, and I think it's coming in a big way this year. So, yeah, I have no issues drafting Bijan Robinson as a number 2 off the board at running back. Sometimes I'll take Breece Hall ahead of him just because I play in a lot of leagues and I want some variance. I think Breece has that same range of outcomes. But, like, Bijan and what could potentially happen, like this Falcons offense, to me, they are a top 10 or better offense this season. And Bijan should be a big part of that. All things being, like, he was number 5 in weighted opportunities, that metric on Player Profiler, it ropes in not only, and this is for the running back position only, not only carries, but how valuable these PPR opportunities are. He was the number 5 back, so he wasn't used terribly. He just wasn't used enough to complement his skill set. Now, Atlanta last year, they were number 3 in run plays per game. They're going to be a much more balanced offense. They're probably going to throw a lot more, but it doesn't mean Bijan Robinson isn't going to get his touches because that's really where I'm saying he was misused. They can run less and just funnel those touches where they should be going, which is in Bijan Robinson's stomach instead of to Tyler Algier and Cordarrelle Patterson, who's in Atlanta or Pittsburgh right now. But he's everything. efficiency metrics off the page, workout metrics off the page. It's just a matter of time until this guy flourishes. And yeah, he's going to probably push CMC for that number 1 overall placing.
Steve, what says you on all this, rounding out the Bijan Robinson talk?
Yeah, I mean, Bijan is going to be worth the first round pick. Last year, he was more of a second or a third round pick, even though he was going in the first round for the most part. Is he going to pay off that first round ADP this year? I could see him paying it off, but I could also see him possibly not paying it off. But yeah, Bijan, the biggest issue, I guess they used him a lot, but it was around the goal line. They were using Algier, they're using Cordell Patterson, so that kind of hurt him a little bit from his touchdown stats. But yeah, I mean, if you got to have some teams of Bijan Robinson for sure.
No.
So I don't know. Sky's the limit. Can I see him being the number 1 back? I think it's going to be tough. It's certainly possible. You can't leave him out of that. But I would say I would lean no more than yes.
Well, don't forget too, Jonnu Smith is no longer there as well. So, those goal line touches may be a little bit more available now.
That's true. Jonnu was
the three stooges in Arthur Smith, Jonnu Smith, the two Smiths, and Cordell Patterson are no longer there. So you can breathe easy and go to sleep.
We're all assuming that it's all going to be a lot better in Atlanta, and it certainly should be. But until they get on the field and we see it, we really don't know. But Bijan. I mean, I think he's maybe a little overhyped. I don't think he's like as awesome as some people think, but he certainly could do everything. He's a great receiver. He's a solid runner. He's got he can break away. He could break that 30, 40-yard run. But, Jonathan Taylor's another guy that I could see finishing, possibly getting back to the number 1 spot. But, yeah, I mean, you gotta have – if you're doing a lot of leagues like me, you got to mix in Bijan here and there.
Sure. Yeah. All right. There you go. All right. I will just mention, because we brought up his name a few times here, we don't have to go around the room on this one. I'm just mentioning it because I don't think there's any kind of concern. Robert Saleh did say during the mandatory minicamp that Breece Hall was dealing with a lower body thing, but he should be fine. You could think about what that means, but he'll be fine, so you don't have to worry about it. I think we can. Do we want to jump into our player versus players? We're at 47 minutes here. We want to jump into that. All right.
I'm a little bummed. I thought we were going to talk about Jonnu Smith.
No.
So, but all right, we
he is with the Dolphins. He could be okay.
The Jets are also saying that Braylon Allen's probably going to win that number 2 spot. So
I did see that. He looks really good. I wish he would have went anywhere else but the Jets. It's good for the Jets fans. It's not good for fantasy fans, though.
Well, I mean, if he's going to get, Breece Hall's if he's going to be the second guy, or if Breece Hall's going to be injured, I mean, he's probably direct handcuff. So, I mean, he could be a nice fantasy asset. I mean, later in the draft, you take him maybe 19th, 20th round,
Yeah. That's fair.
So, what's that? Pete, what do you got? You about to say something?
No, my dog just knocked out my monitor real quick. So you lead us to the first segment, and
fantastic. I will. We'll jump into this. Let's go, Anthony. Obviously, since Pete is a little busy at the moment, we'll go with our player versus player debate. This is a fantasy football debate, little back and forth. Player versus player. Anthony, I'll let you kick this off. I'll give it to you. And that would be Drake London. If you're watching on the YouTube, you see I am now out of the screen, but there he is. Drake London against Mike Evans. Anthony will be representing Drake London. I will be representing Mike Evans, both NFC South receivers. Anthony, go ahead. The floor is yours, my dear. What says you about Drake London?
So, I wanted to get you back into the screen here. I don't know how to do that and bring back Pete. I'll
be back.
So, Drake London, and again, as I said earlier with Kyle Pitts, certain players, it's not about talent, it's about situation, and that's what Drake London is to me. Like, let's, for example, DJ Moore, never really worked out in Carolina. All of a sudden, you get that quarterback upgrade. Even though it was Fields, it was still a big-time quarterback upgrade, and we see the best season we've ever seen from DJ Moore. Now we scale in, well, why do I love Drake London? Why am I willing to pay his ADP right now for a guy who in his first 2 NFL seasons has never finished better than the wide receiver 42 in fantasy points per game? He's never given us more than 10.5 fantasy points per game. That reason is all the new changes in Atlanta. I just, like I said, with these other guys, Bijan and Kyle Pitts, I am all in on this team. If I am wrong on the Falcons, my bankroll in gaming, and that's when I say fantasy and betting, is going to go in the wrong direction dramatically. That's how in I am on this football team, especially the offense. You know, when you look at fantasy stacks, outside of Bijan, like you can get your hands on Bijan or Drake London. And let's take London here, for example, because we're talking about him, and then go ahead and maybe get Kyle Pitts and then Kirk Cousins in a best ball league. That ceiling could potentially win you that league, or if you're in a tournament setting, can cash you some big money. So Drake London here, he's never had more than 117 targets in a season. Even when he was getting those targets, they were not good targets. The quarterback play was terrible. We know Kirk Cousins, look what he did for Justin Jefferson. So do we believe Drake London can be as good as Justin Jefferson? I don't know if he's going to be as good as Justin Jefferson. I just know Drake London was drafted as the 8th overall pick. Justin Jefferson was drafted a little bit later in draft. So the NFL viewed Drake London as a more talented prospect coming in at 6'4", 213. So I think Drake London has it all, has the skill set, and now we finally has the quarterback in place, which is very important, and the offensive system in place to pop. Now, why is the offensive system important? As I said earlier with Bijan Robinson, they were number 3 in team running plays per game. Really hard to support an elite wide receiver when you're running that much. I think we're going to see a more balanced, maybe a little bit more of the scales tipping into throwing, which does favor Drake London. Again, you get the Kirk Cousins targets, which were a lot more efficient. Last year, London catchable target rate, only 80 of his 109 targets were catchable. That's 36 amongst wide receivers, 73.4%. That number likely goes up. And just everything across the board, we're going to see deep targets, red zone opportunities. They should also trend up. So again, I'm just in on Drake London. I'm in on the offense. And if you're willing to pay up for that ADP, 14.3, he's expensive for a guy that's never, like, this isn't a been there, done it guy. If you're willing to pay up for Drake London, I think it is a high risk, but I think the reward, I think he could finish as high as a wide receiver 8 or better.
Yeah, listen, and this is the thing. As much as I love to argue with Anthony, as much as I love to kill him on things, and we have a good time with it, I don't hate Drake London. And I'm going to speak for Anthony here. I'm just going to naturally assume he doesn't hate Mike Evans either. This is both very good players, both players that can help you with your fantasy teams. To me, though, I mean, Mike Evans there are not many sure things in fantasy football. And at the wide receiver position, when you get outside of that top tier, when you get outside of the Justin Jeffersons of the world and the CeeDee Lambs of the world, to me, Mike Evans is one of the most sure wide receivers in fantasy football. You're talking about a guy in his 10-year career. He's finished as a top 12 receiver 70% of the time. 70% of the time. He's had 1,000 yards in every single season. He's got no signs of slowing down. His last year, he was the wide receiver 5. By the way, this is all PPR information here. Right now, and at least this is what I looked at as far as ADP. Some ADPs on different sites are different. I would advise you to look around, get a lay of the land. But where I looked right now in a PPR format, Mike Evans is going as a wide receiver 16. This is a wide receiver 16 who, again, 70% of the time, he's top 12. And this is a guy who has been through it. He, in terms of, yes, he's had the highs of Tom Brady, and he's had the lows of Mike Glennon at one point, Jameis Winston throwing interceptions left and right. Mike Evans is quarterback proof, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield, he flourished with last year. Obviously, I just mentioned wide receiver 5. Drake London right now, at least of what I looked at, he's going as a wide receiver 10. So to me, while I love Drake London, I would rather wait a little bit longer, take Mike Evans, and know that I'm getting that production. That production is always going to be there with Mike Evans. He's just that kind of player. Damn it, I'll say too, keeps going. Probably Hall of Fame. I mean, 10 years, 1,000 yards. So to me, Mike Evans, I will always be hopelessly devoted to him. And I know the big thing is they have the new offensive coordinator. Dan Canales has gone off to be the offensive coordinator. Has gone off to be the head coach for the Carolina Panthers. He was the offensive coordinator with Tampa Bay. Liam Cohen steps in. He was with the Rams in 2022. He worked with Baker there. They had a cup of coffee together. So maybe there's a tiny bit of familiarity, maybe, but not like it matters because, again, Evans is quarterback proof. He's probably offensive coordinator proof. It doesn't matter. I just think Evans is always just going to be a producer. He's the most sure thing in fantasy football when you get outside of those top tier players that are on the cover of your fantasy football magazines. So again, I would love to, beat up Anthony on this. I'd love to argue with him, but I love Drake London, so I'm not going to do that. But to me, I would rather go with Mike Evans. I think I'd sleep easier at night with Evans over London. That would be my take.
I don't have much bad to say about Mike Evans. I just believe the Drake London ceiling is higher to where Evans, like if you look at his body of work, and I immediately think of Keenan Allen, and now obviously things change now with Keenan Allen with the Bears. I don't believe this anymore, but for a number of years, you knew you were getting with Keenan Allen. You were going to get a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy points per game. The ceiling wasn't top 5, but you knew you were getting a consistent wide receiver 1, stability wide receiver that you could build your fantasy football team around. If you look at Mike Evans, going back to 2018, he's finished outside of the top 12 in fantasy points per game 2 times. 1 year, wide receiver 16 in 2020. 2 years ago, wide receiver 13. So
the Brady Swan song.
As they come, as you're saying, and you're paying basically around cheaper for Mike Evans. So it all depends on, as a fantasy manager, what do you want? If you want that high floor and consistency and stability, you draft Mike Evans. If you want the home run, you go draft Drake London, but also keep in mind, there is also bust potential in Drake London because we've never seen it before. So yeah, you're probably going to get the higher ceiling with London, but you're certainly going to get the lower floor just in case. You also
right.
Like when I'm presenting my cases, you always got to look at it. Like, a lot of people don't like looking at downside. There is a downside to Drake London.
There is a downside. You have to look at it. So again, hey, and if you draft correctly, hell, Anthony, maybe get both guys. How about that? That'd be nice. So there is that. So we have done our debate. Pete has fixed his camera. He's put on his glasses. And Anthony, can I tell you why he put on those glasses? Anthony, can I tell you why? No, because he is hiding himself, because I put out a post and to say, when Pete goes ahead and compares, well, not compares, but puts Daniel Jones in the same sentence as Brock Purdy. So he's trying to hide from the public, but he is on YouTube, so it's hard to hide from the public when you're on YouTube.
Anthony, you're gonna pop a blood vessel, man. Relax.
And now Steve's got on his glasses. Anthony's doing fake glasses. I have sunglasses over there. I'm not reaching for them because I might fall down because I'm in a chair. But let's get to our other player debate, and then we will end this show. That is going to be Brian Robinson, running back for the Commanders, who's representing him?
That'd be moi.
That would be Pete. So myself. Pete is representing Brian Robinson, and then Nick Chubb will be represented by Steve. All right, Pete, you got the sunglasses on. You think you're hot shit. I'll let you go first. So you could talk to us about Brian Robinson, and then Steve, you can go right ahead and jump in about Chubb.
All right.
Yeah, I see Anthony's working on getting so that we can see Steve's pretty face. But yeah, I put the sunglasses on because I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that I was serious about this conversation today.
Oh wow.
I was hoping we could get into some little bit of some heated discussion. But in terms of Brian Robinson, he's going pretty close to Nick Chubb at ADP at 34. He finished at 13.2 fantasy points. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
Good job.
But yeah, Brian Robinson finished 13.2 fantasy points per game. Commanders' ninth rated run blocking team by Pro Football Focus last season. Robinson surprisingly had two running back one, the number one RB overall finishes last season, and 3 in the top 10. And I don't know. I know Austin Eckler is there, and I still like Austin Eckler if I can get him a couple rounds cheaper as well. But I look at Cliff and I look at James Conner and James Conner's time with Cliff when he was with the Commanders. And James Conner averaged 9.5 touchdowns per season under Cliff when he was with the Cardinals. Similar play style, similar size, similar running backs with Brian Robinson and James Conner. I'd say that Brian Robinson's a little stronger and Conner might be a little faster, but they are similar bodies, and I think they could be used in the same ways. James Conner also averaged 40 catches per season under Cliff, and B-Rob had 36 catches last season. I don't want to use his first year because he did miss some games due to getting shot in the leg in the offseason. Didn't start the season healthy. But I definitely feel like they can replicate what they were able to do with James Conner in this offense. And this is a much younger player than James Conner was. So I like him. I think, and we'll let Steve obviously talk about Chubb. And I do like Nick Chubb. And I wouldn't mind getting Nick Chubb either. I think the upside with Robinson's there. I'm excited to see this offense, with Jaden Daniels. It adds an extra stress on the defense if they're going to run, any option. It adds a stress to the defense, and there could be some opportunities taken away from Robinson due to Jaden Daniels' rushing abilities. But I think Robinson's in for a good season, and I don't really, for the life of me, understand how he's being drafted as the RB 34. I don't know if Austin Eckler has really hit his stock hard, but I think 34 is pretty far. And I understand Nick Chubb because we just don't know if he's going to start the season healthy or not. So that's kind of my feelings on it. But that's why I would go Brian Robinson in this situation.
All right. Yeah, I like Brian Robinson. I was drafting him over Antonio Gibson last year, who is now departed, and you bring in Austin Eckler. You're bringing a new quarterback.
He died? You said departed. I'm sorry.
Fucking, you need another beer, bro. You ran out.
I'm working on it.
But yeah, Nick Chubb, I mean, it's kind of risky. Obviously, the guy had an MCL tear. He had an ACL tear. So he went for the MCL surgery first. Then he completed his ACL surgery, I believe, in November. Still relatively early, still plenty of time to recover. There's still questions whether or not he'll be available by training camp or possibly even week 1. We'll see. But the technology is getting better. The recovery for these running backs seems to just get faster and faster. I mean, case in point was Breece Hall last year, who, had somewhat of a clean tear of his ACL. But he came back, and the Jets, I thought, handled it perfectly. I think that's understated on how the Jets handled that with bringing in Dalvin Cook and taking the foot, off the gas of Breece Hall early on, letting him slowly adapt into the lineup. And then what was it, week 9, week 10, they finally brought him up to speed. And he showed flashes early on, like he was ready, but they still weren't tempted by that. They stayed patient, and I thought they made the absolute right move, bring Breece Hall back in slowly. So I'm hoping that the Browns will do something similar. They brought in Donta Foreman, who is, whenever he gets a chance, looks pretty damn solid out there, with the Bears, with the Titans. Very, very capable running back. So I think in the beginning, we're going to see Donta Foreman. We're going to see, Jerome Ford as well. Those two guys will probably take some of the heat off of Nick Chubb. But as we get into the season, as we get towards, the fantasy playoffs, I think we'll see more and more Nick Chubb. And, Nick Chubb, arguably, you could say he's the best pure runner in the NFL. 4 straight, 4,000-yard seasons. He had 3 double-digit touchdown seasons. He finished in the top 10 4 times. The injury is a concern, but I think, with the technology, the way they do these surgeries now, the way he's, he's working his balls off to get back. He's a true professional. The guy, again, has been, one of the top backs in the league. He was going in the first round last year, the end of the first round, early second round. Now you get him on underdog drafts and best ball 10th round. You can get him in high stakes FFPC, NFC 9th round. So, even if you swing and miss, if he's your 3rd, 4th running back, I still think the reward outweighs the risk on Nick Chubb. Even if he gets hurt again during the year, I still think it's worth diving in and going after him regardless, just because that ADP right now, 9th, 10th round, whether it's underdog, best ball, or high stakes or whatever, your home league, I think it's worth it because the reward, he could just produce tremendously down the stretch, get hot towards the end of the year, much like Breece Hall did last year as well. So I like Brian Robinson. I just think, Nick Chubb presents more upside in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like your point there too, about the later on in the season, right? If you're drafting Chubb, you could draft him and get Jerome Ford a round or 2 later if you feel comfortable enough doing that. And or Chubb could be a guy, or Foreman too. I think Ford will carry more value even when Chubb is back. I think Foreman and Chubb are a little similar, so Foreman won't see the field as much. But I think Chubb can be that guy down the stretch if he recovers well enough. And I didn't even think about it too, but Antonio Gibson is kind of like the Eckler in the Brian Robinson situation, and Brian Robinson was able to do pretty well. So I like that you brought that up too, and I think it's, if anything, Eckler at this point may not even be as good as Antonio Gibson was last year. We don't really know just yet. So, I like these debates. I like Nick Chubb as well. I just think depending on where you are in your draft will depend on which one of these guys you take. But I would be comfortable taking either at these prices because I think they're just pretty damn low. So that'll close out our player versus player between me and Steve.
I would just say Eckler's interesting because, on one hand you could say, well, he was hurt. That's the reason he wasn't producing last year. So maybe he's fully healthy now. Maybe he really hasn't hit a wall. But you have to think even, Eckler, even if he's not the player he used to be, I still think he's better than Antonio Gibson. And Robinson did catch 37 balls last year, had 9 touchdowns. But with Jaden Daniels, the offense could get better. It should get better. There's no doubt. So I like Brian Robinson. I think he's underrated. He's not like a guy that's going to, wow you with big breakout runs, but he's got good hand. He's definitely an underrated receiver.
Yeah, I agree.
So there you go. We've given you 2 different debates, one towards the top of the draft. There's another one that's not towards the bottom, but there's value there with those 2 players. So we're going to be looking to come at you with a bunch of those throughout this. I shouldn't even say off season because we're ramping up. We're getting ready now. It's about time to buckle up, Buttercup. We're getting into this fantasy football stuff. So we're going to be doing plenty of these debates. But Anthony, before we ride off into the sunset today, did you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer Zach's question. I typed it out, but I just wanted to say, who do we take in Rice, Dell, or Higgins? I would either take Dell or Rice. And my answer I put in the chat was they both have immediate hurdles with Rice facing suspension and Tank Dell with Stephon Diggs. Diggs will not be there long term. I don't think. I know he's on a. So it's and also Rashee Rice, they're both attached to top end quarterbacks. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. I think I might lean Dell here, but it's very hard for me to turn down Rashee Rice when he's going to be married to Patrick Mahomes long term, and Travis Kelce could be retired in 2 years when his new deal's up.
Yeah,
so
I'm just worried about
pick
Rashee
your poison.
Rice.
Yeah,
I'm just worried about Rashee Rice continuously getting himself in trouble.
I know.
You know, with these sorts of things, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
Tends to unfortunately get worse. So, jury's out on that sort of perspective. But all right, yeah. So that'll do it for today's show. We will be coming at you again on Friday, right? Friday's happening. Friday's a thing.
Yes.
Okay. We'll be coming at you on
Monday,
Friday.
Wednesday, Friday, at least live.
Making sure I'm all right. So 3 days a week.
Videos
live
dropping other days.
Videos dropping other days. We are getting ready for fantasy football season. Join us, why won't you? Until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another. We'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.